Do you know that 98% of people watch the videos without subscribing? If you like our videos, we would be excited to see you guys subscribed. It has a huge impact on the channel promotion. And also, you will stay updated with newest content. Happy to have you here.
All right, Dan, you heard the tail of the tape there from Jake. We're getting into it now. Aegis Aurora versus Buff Enjoyers. Buff Enjoyers looking to get back on top of the mountain. Aegis Aurora looking to defend their newly claimed title. Few Christmas skins out in the play, and a rare Mirage sighting. I feel like Mirage has been banned more than picked in recent times, but now get to see Mirage to kick off this best of three.
Yeah, and it's so cool. It's a testament, I think, to Deadlock's, I guess, overall hero balance across all of the roles. To be honest, that we can have a veto where, the heroes that are not necessarily like considered S tier universally. Certain teams can play these heroes in their compositions and it can be central enough to their strategy that it actually warrants that opportunity cost decision. Hey, we're going to ban that against this specific team, which then opens up S tier hero picks. I think that's like very healthy that the opportunity cost works in that way, and it's going to help give more variance to the games that we see. And it means also that the teams that are more adaptable, which to me is more interesting, are going to be the teams that are going to have a huge edge. And that's a big question here for Aegis Aurora's EP, because they've been heavily controlled in this draft if you compare it to the previous drafts we've seen for them.
Yeah, and also you talk about who's playing what. Last time we saw Aegis Aurora, their frontline players, ABL and Irez, it was ABL on the Yamato all day long. Irez was on Mo and Krill more often than not. And this time around, shifted on the Geist and Warden, which, same role and how teams tend to play them, but very different impacts on the game. As Jake was going, kind of talking about, it's not quite the team comp that's going to be running you down the way that a Yamato comp would.
Yeah, this is another reason why I love this game as an esport, because you add the layer of itemization and the fact that you can go gun or spirit, and it can, there's just so many ways that you can play a hero to make it fit into a comp that may otherwise not fit into. And I just love that about this game. So all right, we've got a really nice setup here, I think, based on what we saw previously with Aegis Aurora winning last week. And now Buff Enjoyers having had all of the ability to target them in this draft. And we're starting off, I would say, pretty even here. Nothing that seems all that aggressive, ZP. It feels like a pretty standard start. As I say that, obviously there's a kill, of course.
And Mikhail, I was just looking at the health bar. I was like, that doesn't look very good. And Mikhail just fallen down. I think might have just gotten hit by a carbine stake combo, if I had to guess. It's usually what's going to kill you early in the game versus a lane like that. But one of the better kills you can get early on. Not that early kills have the absolute greatest impact, but it's a death by 1,000 cuts. You get the shiv a little bit behind. You hope it pays off later in the game.
Certainly, yeah, and there are so many dynamics at play in this particular matchup that would be very interesting. I was about to mention this exact dynamic, the hook on the Vindicta, absolutely massive there. Oh my goodness, it's actually getting away on the Vindicta. It seems that might be the case. What?
I think Freemock just provided just enough covering fire, but Saint lucky to get out alive. And this is something we've been seeing more. It's more in NA, but there's definitely the developing idea that when a team goes for flyers, when they go for Vindicta and Talon, Bebop can be a pretty convincing counterpick. And it's also Dmov playing in the playmaker role here too, in a sense, where usually Buff Enjoyers would be running Mikhail on Pocket or Mikhail on Paradox more frequently. And Mikhail more in the frontline role this time around. Dmov is going to be the one that's going to be trying to make things happen with rotations in the mid game on the Bebop.
Yeah, it's so fun to see this come out as the counter, and got to see what Saint's going to be able to do. Maybe reactive barrier. Is that something that that's not as commonly brought anymore? Obviously, the divine shield is often collected, but you get a fight here on lane 3. Once again, the time walks to try to provide some cover against this Bebop. Now Dmov is getting a little bit low here, but still providing a lot of damage. And it looks like that will not amount to any kills.
Yeah, but even getting that level of lane pressure is pretty good. Just giving you a little bit more room to work with on CS and otherwise. It's nothing is ever truly for naught at this point. Although you take a look at the left, truthfully, Warden versus Mirage not the easiest solo lane in the world. So ABL hanging in there, pretty impressive stuff so far. I'm also kind of surprised that you haven't seen ABL get hit with a gank attempt, because there's nothing more appetizing than just ganking a Warden in a solo lane. It's one of the easier ganks you can have, I guess. You know, Furnace, Geist on the other hand, maybe neither really want to rotate just yet, but swap coming on in. Pressure in onto the Vindicta. Kenneth not able to get out.
Yeah, Satan finally going down, and oh, there we get the lift onto the Bebop. Demoff in trouble, but able to stay up for now. Here comes Seismic Slam. Very low is Listic, though. I don't know if he's going to be able to survive this one. Able to convert, though, and trying to survive. And in the meantime, we've got Demoff like sending that ult in, but he's going to get taken out for his troubles. And looks like Aegis Aurora not coming away too poorly there. And in the meantime, 7 hammering away at the Guardian. And 7 is absolutely going to be a talking point, I would imagine. It was last time. You know, as I mentioned in the draft, it was something that Jake has sort of called attention to. Is it giving up too much early to mid game value if you compare it to something like a Vindicta that is going to be able to just consistently provide you know, DPS and support?
Well, it just comes down to what you value, and in this case, Aegis Aurora decided we wanted the value rate really highly, and Buff Enjoyers in turn said, okay, we're gonna use these early picks on Shiv. As I said, that Ken able to come in.
Wow.
Quick little assassinate on the Obi-Ken, puts him down.
Yeah, also connected the assassinate through the shroud as well right before that. So pretty excellent you know, sharpshooter action coming in from Stain on the Vindicta. So really good start. That's what you want to see out of Vindicta. Also taking down Sharik on the Mirage too. So big wins here for Aegis Aurora early on. You want to pump up your Vindicta, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is also where Vindicta really just tends to make her mark known at the game. It's just this early to mid game where Assassinate has more value than it does in any other part of the game. As I say, that Sharik off on the rotation. Look, it was a matter of time. You had Warden and solo lane. Like, at some point, someone's going to come over and hit the pinata. Like, it is one of the easier kills you can get in the game, which is... I'm always a little bit suspicious of Warden solo lane. I mean, you can make it work, but I'm never the biggest fan of it.
All right, well, Aegis Aurora, they seem to be in control of the action at the moment, and once again, we have trouble for Obi Kim on this Ivy, trying desperately to survive. Oh my god. still alive, but not for much longer. Actually, wait, hang on. This Irazumi is going to go down on the Geist, and in fact, Obi Kim is still somehow alive, just sitting in a corner somewhere with 1 HP.
Look, Ivy, if nothing else, can be slippery between Stone Form and just not the easiest hitbox in the world to convert all your damage on. But take a look here, rotation of 3 over into lane 4. Let's see where D-Mob decides to run this. With a rotation over in lane 3. Nope, says Hyper Beam, get out of the sky. Kenneth gonna be sent on down in response.
Well, a couple minutes to the bridge buffs come up. A bit more action here on lane 4. A lot of action, 3 players here for Buff Enjoy, 3 players here for Aegis Aurora. Aegis Aurora, though, fanning back out. They have been routed, I suppose. And it will be a gank, actually, onto lane 3. Once again, Obi Kim on the Ivy, trying to pressure the tower. But he has a free mock on the Paradox coming in for the sabotage.
Oh, he got away, but the hook brings Vindicta down, finishes off with an uppercut, and...
We're going to have to see what creativity can be applied to find a way to deal with these hooks. There's also the hooks. The cooldown on the hooks is it's a very short duration, so, you know, those are going to be coming for you, no problem. So, with that said, Buff Enjoy quite a few low players, but they are doing a good job here on trying to, you know, take down some of these objectives. Freemog coming in for the assist from lane 3 to lane 2 potentially, as all the action is taking place here on lane 2 at the moment. Looking to see if they can take down MKLS, but having to fall back here, Aegis Aurora, unable to maybe get some of those forward kills they were looking for. Freemog is still behind Buff Enjoyers, and he's going to take down MKLS, so it looks like we're going to re-engage here, and Obi Kim once again in trouble. I feel like Obi Kim is constantly in trouble. The stone form's being used. I don't know if there's any way out of this corner. Nice charge melee connected, the dash through, and oh my goodness, Obi Kim escapes again.
Obi Kim gets away, but that was also a really well-timed last end from ABL, where there was a chance it could turn the fight entirely, and at a minimum, healed him back up, stopped it from getting turned against. Assassinate attempt here from Ken. Maybe rotating back out. Seismic Slam, though, in from Listic, seizing the opportunity again, looking for the Vindicta. 100 HP and down. It's been a no-fly zone for Ken in a lot of these fights here, Dan. A lot of good suppression. Here's Jimmy, though, returning the favor. And Mikhail has just been the target of punishment from Aegis Aurora as much as possible, which, again, you think about heroes that take over the game. It's smart. Don't let Shiv have an easy time.
Yeah, oh, Warden on the movement buff is really nice for ABL, actually. You know, we talk about Warden having a difficulty with chasing people down, so that'll be quite helpful. Collected by Aegis Aurora for the time being. Looking to ferry that one across, and once again, more shenanigans coming in through from Demov. What an excellent pick that Bebop was.
Yeah, you take a look at where things are at now. You know, again, both teams trading out. Earn going to be in rotation from Aegis Aurora here, and all likelihood. I feel like every time I look at Obakin, the pressure is just enhanced. And this isn't all that different, Dan, than last week where Obakim was under pressure the entire time. And, you know, at the very least, it's not a Mo in this instance, but still the idea of, hey, you're playing in a more support role, we're going to go for you more aggressively. It feels like it's ramped up in 2025
yeah.
relative to 2024.
Yes, definitely being targeted. Oh, good charge connected there onto Wizasta. That is a quick one. Quick, easy conversion. 53k for Aegis Aurora, 54 now, and 53 for Buff Enjoyers. So Soul situation has parity currently, but in drops Demov on the Bebop, looking to join in the action over here on in between lane 3 and 4 as the fight continues. But it's going to be Zergy to pick up the kill onto Fremog. That's going to send Aegis Aurora back. They're on the retreat, but can they actually keep themselves alive as they actually retreat? That's the question. The pursuit is on at the moment.
Yeah, Buff Enjoyers is retreating in one lane, but on the other lane, they're also looking for push. They got a lot of damage onto lane 2 Walker. Not enough to finish it off, but you see the rotational play happening on both ends of the map right now. Speed rotations, sometimes you just want to go back to base, which is the case for Shriek there. But looking at the trends in the game right now, Dan, it's about as even gets. There's really nothing to talk about in terms of stuff being super far ahead. Might be a point of concern in Listic at 7k. It is starting to get to the zone, whereas Abrams are going to need help on your pins versus being the force of nature and comboing people. So that might be the one thing for Buff Enjoyers on an otherwise even game where they look at it and they go, yeah, we might want to reapportion this if we could.
Yeah, actually looking at the Buff Enjoyers lineup, it does feel like there is certainly a lot of pressure, especially off of Shriek and Zergy, to be delivering sort of that like hardcore DPS, like later on in some of these big team fights. Because on the other end of the spectrum, Aegis Aurora have. Oh, yeah, hold that thought. We've got another engagement coming on through. Demov getting targeted instead. He is absolutely screwed here, ZP. He's been deleted, and there's no hook here to stop the aerial assault from Kenneth. Going to be falling off and away though to reposition, and it's still looking like a decent fight for Aegis Aurora as Buff Enjoys re-engage.
Yeah, Kenneth getting that no-fly zone canceled, at least for a moment. Disaster taking refuge down in the subway. Mikhail caught off. There's just a quick telekinesis from Sanya. Will not have the support, so 2 down, and it's near middle. This is where, if you're Aegis Aurora, you maybe pursue a little bit, get one more, go mid. They get the one more. It's Obakim, who can't get away. And with this amount down, does Aegis Aurora send this to middle? It's looking like they're thinking about it, but with the Infernus off in lane 1, I don't really know if they're going to commit to it yet, Dan.
It would be pretty crazy. Aegis Aurora's decisiveness on the macro is certainly something we saw consistently on the previous Wednesday, where they managed to win Deadlock Fight Night. But it is not the time. Indeed, it would seem. Buff Enjoyers, their lane control is definitely being pushed much more into their side of the map than much more so than they would like at this point, but now they're back out on the map altogether after some of those deaths. They can reassert themselves, but in the meantime, we actually see Aegis Aurora. They've crafted a bit of a lead here, but charge comes through for Listic. Might be more biting off more than he can chew, though, ZP.
Yeah, you don't really want to fight a Paradox when there's all that situation. It could, you can just see your HP melt away dancing through the wall. Paradox, very, very able to play around that. But as I say that, Fremog still gets caught around the backside. Listic was able to rotate back around. So, not the worst for Buff Enjoyers to see here. Kenneth just getting pummeled a little bit by the Mirage. No full commit either way. 74k to 70k. Next earn up in 15 seconds. Next buffs up in 15 seconds here, Dan. And it looks like Aegis Aurora, they're going to go for this Guardian, then rotate over to the left buff. I don't know how much you challenge this for buff enjoyers. You'd be relying on Hook and oof. With Mikhail going down, the answer is you don't really challenge it much at all.
Taking flight.
Yeah, looking really good for Aegis Aurora here, really taking command of this fight, converting on 2 kills. This should be either a mid-boss or walkers, whatever they want at this point. They're going for the mid-boss, definitely higher value. They can convert that into the walkers afterwards. Now, Sergi is alive. You definitely have some good ability to hold or delay, but okay, well, Vizasa's is going to go down, so maybe there might be more of a chance here for buff enjoyers to defend these walkers after all, because that's going to be the main point of concern for them, ZP.
Now, right now, buff enjoyers, they're just playing the outskirts. They're going for lane 4, and they say you can have the rejuve. And also, for a little bit of quick commentary here, you know, Jake's been waiting in the wings. Jake, give us a quick hit on what you've seen so far.
Yeah, I think a couple things to note. I like that buff enjoyers actually don't contest this mid boss because in the end, they're relying on this 7 to scale deep into the late game. He went for like a greedier build. I mean, very safe in the early game, but now starting to snowball into some of these greedier farming items. And on the other side, Vindicta has max snipe, so it didn't put a single point in anything up until snipe came available, and then full maxed it straight from the start. So Vindicta is all about picks into snowball here. So I think like giving Vindicta snipe kills is something that you really can't do right now as buff enjoyers, even at the risk of losing something like the mid boss.
All right, well, yeah, it's interesting to hear that just in the strategy that they're running with. But oh, speaking of running, we got Demov nowhere to go. Kind of just chasing it down. 86K, 84K now. And Dan, you look at the Urn right now. Urn more contested than it usually has been in transit.
Yeah. Interesting, I just like paying attention to the mouth movement kind of there, just like those little flicks. I think it's because he missed the snipe. He's like, sort of feels like he's messing with his mouth a little bit, but in the corner here with the Walker, it's going to be an awkward scenario there, at least for the Geist. Irazumi going to go down, but converting on those Walkers. In the meantime, the Urn's being run here by Fremog for Aegis Aurora, so they're going to pick up massive value behind this forward pressure.
Yeah, and while they're in lanes right now, the Urn going to be free for Fremog. No pun intended, as it goes over to the left. And honestly, for Aegis Aurora, the last 5 minutes has worked out quite well for them, Dan. Both in getting some advantageous swaps, getting the Urn, getting a Rejuvenator. I mean, you know, Buff Enjoyer is not out of it by any means, but I feel like at this point, you take a look at who has farmed for Aegis Aurora with how terrifying the front line is going to be from ABL. You're really kind of relying on this person, or this man right here in Demov, to land a hook. And as I said, goes for it. Not quite connecting yet.
Yeah, and I feel like Buff Enjoyer is sort of gathering up towards the left side of the map here because they've got that Guardian that's still up, 17.5 minutes, and that lane 1 Guardian is still up for Aegis Aurora. So they likely want to try to take care of that. It should be, again, the extremity Guardians and Walkers are less risky, generally speaking. But with that said, Wizasta, what on earth are you doing back here?
Going back to spawn. It's the unheard of teleporter in that instance. You know, Abrams opened the book and found a new way. But it's a very quick pickoff, all time by Buff Enjoyers. And look, when you're behind, that's the kind of things you need to look for. Just someone out of position real quick, get a quick pickoff, and climb the mountain piece by piece. Even as Aegis Aurora has been making pretty decent use of the Rejuvenator thus far.
Yeah, so very push here, our Buff Enjoyers. Or rather, sorry, our Aegis Aurora into Buff Enjoyers. And it's looking like this could be another team fight potentially. That lane 1 Walker, it looks like that's a target for Aegis Aurora right now. And I do really like that, again, because it prevents Buff Enjoyers from actually killing the lane 1 Guardian that's still up for Aegis Aurora. And here we go.
Fremont. Go swap online with this Carbine. Walker goes down, so they get their prize. They get Demov immediately. Demov not able to land a key hook, and the rest of Buff Enjoyers just desperately trying to disengage out of this fight. ABL, meanwhile, saying, "Gonna go in even deeper," drops the last stand, rushes forward. Fremont going, okay, Mikhail takes the fight on top. Way healthier turn, gets parried, though! Surely Mikhail doesn't survive here. Swap comes in at the end, and no, Mikhail goes down, but valiant effort from Mikhail nonetheless.
Indeed, yeah, it's looking great here for Aegis Aurora. They're finally really swinging forward in value. They've engineered over the last few minutes a 30k advantage in total, clearing up these base Guardians as well. So it's feeling pretty bad right now for Buff Enjoyers. Suddenly, it doesn't feel like there's an easy answer, or really, I mean, they're going to start getting stat checked pretty heavily too. So it's really mounting against them the disadvantages they have.
Yeah, I mean, the stat check is a big thing. A 15k Shiv in the front line is not particularly scary. And also, you talk about carry options here. 7 is a hero that doesn't feel good even when 7 is at even. 7 is a farmer. It's a character that needs to be significantly ahead of the game to have an impact. And that surely right now is not the case. ABL, though, gets picked off. Again, Buffalo is good at finding these opportunities. They're going to need to do that a lot, though, Dan, and not do it in a trade like this one just ended up with Listic.
Oh, nice Stonefall. That's a nice little stun there from up high, but Obikim's going to get melted shortly, finding a position to work with on the stairs in the meantime, but is he able to help his teammates out? I don't know, really, but the thing is, Aegis Aurora don't have too many players who have survived here. However, some of the most important ones have. Kenneth doing massive damage there, 7-kill streak, and Demo trying to escape it. Able to do so, but it's really hurting right now for buff enjoyers, and the lead is only continuing to extend.
Yeah, I mean, some of those trade-outs weren't the worst. I mean, when you're behind, obviously you're good doing a 2 for 2, but the 2 for 4, not so much in the end. Buffs, of course, coming back up. And now, kind of just being sneaky, lands the quick stake into the follow-through. As you wonder here for Demov, it's like, well, wait, Bebop's the one that's supposed to be landing the sneakiness, not getting ambushed by a Vindicta. Just brutal setup from Aegis Aurora that helps add to their lead.
So the question is, what are the win conditions for buff enjoyers at this point, and are we crossing the threshold that it requires a big mistake from the opponents? Because that's obviously the place you never want to be. You don't have to rely on your opponents failing, and that's going to be a very easy earn collection deep in enemy territory by Fremok. Buff enjoyers can't do anything about that. Obikam once again trying to get out of dodge. Will be able to do so as Aegis Aurora fall off, and makes a lot of sense because, hey, mid-boss coming up in 30 seconds.
Yeah, you're asking about win conditions right now, and truly it is in the realm that I think Aegis Aurora does have to make a pretty substantial mistake at this point. You just look at the comp that Buff Enjoyers is running right now, and realistically speaking, they have to land a God Hook and a good finish on top of it just to have a chance at something resembling an even team fight. They cannot win a full 6v6 fight right now. It's not going to work with the comp they have and the farm that they're currently at. So, yeah, they have to play sneaky and get just the best fight conditions ever. And that's why Aegis Aurora, Dan, they know this. They're going to force mid.
Yeah, really good move. That's Ryuji's going to drop in. It really does behoove buff enjoyers to try to do something to stop this. This is really their best chance. They have to do it now. It's going to be on this rejuve. Do they find a steal? No. Kenneth denies it. It gets the pick up on the rejuve. Buff enjoyers lose Listic in the process, and I think it's just going to be a snowball from here. But however, Michaelis does find Disaster, but there's just too much behind it.
All right, and the call friend lifeline. Jake, you're watching all this right now. Buff enjoyers down 3 as Aegis Aurora pushes in. What do they need? Is it done?
In their darkest hour, can 7 save them? It's looking pretty grim, man. 7 just so... Okay, everybody's dead, man. Everybody's dead. It's game over. I don't know. Maybe you get a quick respawn here, but I think Aegis Aurora can full send into the pit right now. Maybe they like to back off and wait for ults. That would be the safer conservative play. Maybe smarter, but with the rejuve, I think you just gamble it right now. I don't think Buff Endurers can take a team fight and actually win while the Patriots being focused.
Yeah, and this time around, Aegis Aurora was known for their safety, and Dan, you look at it here, they decide, we're ending this here now. The DPS comes in fast and furious. The patron is dead, and Aegis Aurora one step closer to defending the crown.
Especially with like how greedy Aegis Aurora's draft was, with like all 6 heroes with strong scaling potential.
It's almost out of their own favor based off of what buff enjoyers were doing, but now it feels like a complete reversal of that.
Well, Buff Enjoyers on the upside, they have some of their biggest comfort picks of all, where you have Mikhail on his signature hero. You talk about the idea of a signature hero. It doesn't get more than Mikhail on the Paradox. Obakim, on Kelvin, which Obakim has played quite a bit. Sharik, especially on the Warden, where you could watch tons of Buff Enjoyers tape and never see Sharik on anything but Warden. So they're on mostly stuff that they've played a lot. I think the Listic on Infernus is... It's a little bit off what we usually see Listic play again, and I think that entirely comes down to the fact that I don't think they expected the Great Talon ban.
Yeah, totally. It's such an awesome ban. I feel like that was like one of the more like fun and exciting drafts that we've seen. on Deadlock Fight Night, and I think that's one of the reasons why. And so now we get to see it play out. And yeah, Buff Enjoyers, I definitely do not feel good about where they've landed with this draft. So we'll have to see what they can do. Like, one of the things that is harder to quantify is that you've got some similar picks, like the Shiv, but hey, the Shiv is not being played by Mikkel, it's being played by Demo.
Well, Fremok running to foul things there, getting taken on down. So early laning, not going too bad for Buff Enjoyers, but I think they need more just high-value interactions like that, because you look at the rest of their early game, it's so dependent on what Mikhail is going to be doing on rotations in the mid game, because the rest is just going to take longer to come online, or it's dependent on D-Mob just getting ahead very early on the shift. Aegis Aurora has way more early game pressure that they can apply here.
And it is also interesting, the difference in playstyle for Aegis Aurora, because of not having that like natural initiator with like the Mo or like the Lash, or to be honest, even the Abrams was like a seismic slam potentially. You can initiate with that or with a charge. So in terms of getting the mid-game picks, they're gonna have to rely more on I think like positional play. Like for example, Fremok on the Viscous, depending on the build, can go pretty aggressive to really bait the opponents into a fight that his teammates can kind of play off of. That's a little bit more tricky perhaps, but I think obviously these players are good enough where they can effectively run strategies like that to try to engineer these mid-game picks.
Also, Warden Kelvin as a lane, it's not as grim as it used to be with Warden's bolt speed, but it's still one of those lanes that, getting CS can be difficult, and you look at the pressure that's being applied. Health-wise, okay, Shariq is dead, as I'm talking about. Like, they have just been absolutely pressured from all ends, and part of that is that, securing last hits in that lane isn't as easy. You take more risks, you take more damage. In that case, it boils over as Shariq goes down, and it's not looking super rosy for Obikin right now either.
Yeah, certainly not. I mean, Obikin is just really, I feel victimized, honestly, in every game he plays. Deadlock Fight Night. But that's it as a support. I think, you're always going to take some L's for the team. Now, as we move it across the lane 2 here, we can see that it feels like these lanes are fairly even for the most part. But wow, what a connection! Was that a Kobe we just saw?
I think it was, where Obikin just uses the rooftops to good effect. You got Shariq back in, healed, and overall this lane, as heavy as the pressure was in the beginning, you look at the overall farm, I mean, it's totally fine for Shariq and Obikin, so good recovery in general on a lane that at times can be difficult to play.
Do you think we're looking at a similar scenario to the previous game where, okay, Aegis Aurora scales better into the late game?
I mean, not necessarily. This is kind of a weird thing. I'd say overall, I prefer the Buff Enjoyers late game. I just think that the ramp that Buff Enjoyers have to late game is a little bit more tortured on the whole. But if Buff Enjoyer is able to get like a good, solid economy lead, especially if it's D-Mob and Shariq that are carrying, he'll be good. Also, Zergy, I think, just went down. This was a little bit there, but yeah, Zergy dying in the middle. Yeah, I mean, this is what Buff Enjoyers has to be careful of, Dan, is just Aegis Aurora getting too much of a lead in the early game.
Well, so far it's looking somewhat even. We do have a Fremok there with some harass. Okay. There is a cage thrown out by Shariq. Trying to deal with this forward pressure. Here comes Obikin though. And there's the cube, that's going to be forced to be used. Is there any escape here? Because that's a frozen shelter you come out into, and there is the ice beam as well. So yeah, you can't escape that. That is the beauty of a Kelvin on your lane, and Obikin, he gets some revenge.
Yeah, I mean, Obikim's revenge arc, you have to think, is going to come at some point with how, specifically versus Aegis Aurora, the target the Obikim strategy has been pretty apparent at times. But in that case, Kelvin can handle himself, especially at 3K. What I'm interested at here now is the mid-game rotations, specifically from Mikhail, from Kenneth, and where they go here, because this is how the early part of the game can really be dictated. And if you're Aegis Aurora, the comp you're running, you do need, I think, to build a significant, nest egg here going into the mid-game. If it's even, I think the odds of things will actually go up quite significantly. And ooh, 2 picks like that, Dan, that helps the cause.
Yeah, that is a juicy pick. Unfortunately, I don't think Vindicta's at the stage that you can get like level 3 assassinate for all the extra money, but it's obviously really nice to finish people off. And
the damage on the Mikhail is actually ridiculous.
Yeah,
that was more dangerous than you would have thought in that instance, even with Shariq coming up hot.
everybody disengaged. So gentlemen's agreements. And we got some good pressure on lane 1 at the moment. It's actually Listic who's really feeling the force of Aegis Aurora, like just having to sit by his tower. So right now, it feels like Aegis Aurora definitely have a great presence in this early game. See the defensive play from Listic, just staying up here, trying to get the last hits as best as possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect too much drama from lane 1, barring other people rotating in for a gank. But as I said, what about people rotating out? See Sanya heading on over to lane 2 for a moment now, heading back in to lane 1. And Mikhail right now, what's Mikhail looking for? A little bit of pressure onto Disaster. But otherwise, no hard commit here just yet.
Yeah, and ABL being on the Mirage obviously has Traveler available to kind of be anywhere at any time, so you've got to be really cautious. And speaking of not much action on lane 1, there is...
I mean, Traveler ganks oftentimes are just crimes of opportunity. You know, generally speaking, it doesn't feel like teams go in with the idea of setting them up so much as, hey, this guy's overextended, or hey, I'm getting jumped, you know, come in and help. It feels much more of an ability of, hey, this is a good opportunity, I'm going to use it. It's more spontaneous, at least at the comp level, in what we've seen a lot of the time. Or it's also used, of course, in split push situations where you just want more pressure on the map before it's used. As speaking of pressure, E-Mob just chunked by Kenneth here in lane 2.
Kenneth off to a great start, as you would expect. Oh, we do get a bit of a chase from Zergy. Oh, he's been cut out of the action due to AB Kim's frozen shelter. Everyone will escape. So, hey, you gotta throw it out there, try to get a catch. Doesn't always connect. Oh, but with that said, ABL is returning the pressure back on. You can get chunked down very quickly by Mirage if you're not careful, even early into the game.
Well, not getting out of that is Freemock. Just too much between the Warden Cage and just general damage being output. 35k to 35k on both sides, and even when you look at who has the farm right now, Dan, it's about as even gets as about 1 minute away from buffs. Carbine on the Irizumi. All three are going to be there. Shiv, hot pursuit, finishes off. Quick killing blow. And not the worst spot for buff enjoyers, as again, we're getting real close to buffs on the way. As Kenneth, though, immediately turns back. And I think this is such an important pick, I feel like, right now, Dan, and how teams have been playing it and the level of pressure you get at this point in the game. It feels like no matter what team is playing it, Vindicta always does this.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting how Aegis Aurora, so they have so much protection in the veto in the draft, because you kind of have to ban the Yamato, so ABL can't play that. But then, you know, there is the Wraith to go to, there's the Vindicta to go to. They have a lot of these options where they can create a lot of damage. So it definitely seems hard to draft against them.
Well,
can't ban everything.
I think as effective as Vindicta has been, though, you talk about who's playing what. ABL is not on a typical front line. You know, like, it's ABL on the Mirage is kind of a crime of opportunity.
Oh my god.
Late in lane. It's definitely an ult mismatch there where, you know, I feel like Stormcloud is a new press cue to die as Vindicta. Get away from that one. And that's a big bag.
Yeah.
And you know why that happens there, Dan, is that, you know, when you get an assassinate kill, it becomes unsecured souls. If Vindicta dies right after, you just feed it away.
Yes, that was not good. And this is a perfect opportunity for a turnaround. 3 kills for Aegis, or rather for buff enjoyers, and the bag. And perhaps some Guardians here as well. So really important, honestly. A great moment here in the early game for buff enjoyers as the Freemock tries to escape here. The splatter, the google, everything, but it's not enough to survive. Vindicta, though, here comes Kenneth. Point blank to the back of the head. The assassinate is used. And not happy about losing the money.
You know, Dan,
pretty rich.
I guess I really channeled your inner game show host energy. It's like they got all the kills and the bag, you know, and the mystery box. So yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good sequence of events for buff enjoyers when you quite literally steal Vindicta's lunch money, which was generated at your expense.
I do feel like Kenneth is kind of like went gangster mode and just like kneecaps, you know, the first available person to get his money back.
Well, speaking of kneecap, Kenneth just died again. I think still had a decent-sized bag, so Vindicta has been very charitable in spending her money right now, so to speak.
Yeah. And looking at the soul distribution. Dimov, Mikhail S, doing pretty well at the moment. Shriek not too far behind as well. So Buffenjoy is in a pretty good spot overall. Obviously, a slight soul lead, 5k across the entire team. And Alchemical Fire, definitely very helpful for farming and just in general, an amazing item at the moment. If you have not been tuned in to Deadlock in a recent couple weeks, Alchemical Fire, it's everywhere now. Everyone has it.
Right now, Obakim, just please get me out of here, and gets out courtesy of Vindicta back to spawn. Quickly taken on down. And yeah, I mean, Alchemical Fire is still item of choice, even with the nerf, so it's not quite as good at building damage. But with that pick-off on the Obakim, this is just going to lead to a very easy earn turn-in for Aegis Aurora, able to rotate over, finish off. Furnace, meanwhile, blown up on the outskirts.
Okay.
The 62k, Dan.
Yeah. How many kills does Kenneth even have right now? Is it like 9, 8, or 9 in the first 10 minutes? It's pretty crazy.
Feels like a lot. It would be the very scientific answer of a lot. It's been a mid-game fixture as Holistic, just absolutely no way of getting away. Freemok rolling over 2 in lane 1. Just spot on Viscous player.
Wait, are we getting a Walker potentially for lane 4? We have 3 players pretty deep for Aegis Aurora. Actually, maybe they're falling away, but no real response. Oh, they just got the Walker. Oh, right, of course, that's what that sound is. That is the Walker dying. So that's pretty crazy, honestly. That's a fairly 12-minute Walker. That's actually kind of sick CP.
Yeah, especially in comp play where teams are just generally better at, doing Walker defenses relative to your general pub game where once the vulnerability kicks in, it's like, Walkers, I don't even know them. But, yeah, I mean, 74k to 68k, Aegis Aurora really making the last few minutes count, getting beneficial swaps back and forth, and, a good amount has still been with Kenneth here, but Listic charging on in, looking to punish ABL. ABL on fire, Listic, though, just gunned down from above, Kenneth with 2. The Vindicta show continues.
This is just outrageous at this point. Kenneth is just dominating this game. It's already, I mean, this has to be the MVP at this point. Oh my god. Okay, well that's a whiff, doesn't really matter. Still gonna get the kill regardless, and four kills. Okay, so Vindicta has at least 10 kills, I think, is my guess. At least 10 kills already. This is a little bit wild.
It does matter a little bit just because that one whiff there was 850 soul difference. And by the way, the shop is closed. They're no longer accepting Vindicta's money if Buffenjoyers has anything to say about it. By the way, you look at Kenneth at 15k right now. That's 15k after donating probably around like 2,500 to 3,000 souls between some of the deaths that happened. Which you just got to kill him again.
Oh my god!
Another shot, another cha-ching. Just swimming in souls right now.
Yeah, this is becoming a problem. This is becoming a problem pretty rapidly here for Buffenjoyers. And, well, and bridge buff up in a minute, 1 minute, 60 seconds away or less than now. And that's going to be certainly a focal point. And this is something you've been talking about for a long time, ZP. It's just Vindicta's just ability to terrorize people around the bridge buffs because of the ability to take flight.
It's very difficult to manage if you don't have something else to go with it. Here again, stake in. You see just Helmet getting shredded. Kenneth just completely suffocating Obakim in the moment. Sanya falling up onto Listic. Buffenjoyers down 2. Aegis Aurora, mid-boss has to be on their mind now, Dan.
Oh, absolutely. It's looking pretty disgusting here. Buffenjoyers are in a lot of trouble. Oh, another one just coming through. The Vindicta is going to go 1,500 souls. Guys.
Oh, the Vindicta charity continues at the very end. I didn't actually see who picked up that soul bag, but I mean, it's been big plays from Kenneth, but a big donation in turn. Buffenjoyers get 2. They lose Shriek towards the end. Still an edge towards Aegis Aurora.
Dude, I don't know what to make of that. I'm gonna have to move on. I need to accept it and move on. Okay. Oh, hello. Divine Barrier comes through the Google. There might be
the stun.
Is there a chance to survive? A cube is available.
I mean, look right now. You drop that versus Viscous at your own peril. It does end up with Freemok dying. And now Buffenjoyers with those pickoffs in Secret Shop decide, guess what? We're gonna go for mid-boss. They might even get Kenneth too. Kenneth in a rough spot for Vindicta goes down, does not donate 1,500 souls this time. just normal kill values. Buff Enjoyers taking advantage of Aegis Aurora being a little bit out of position, and this could be huge for turning the game around, Dan.
Yeah, this is a great moment. Obi Kim did actually go down there very quickly before the Vindicta died, but I don't know if it's going to be super important. With that said, actually, maybe it is, because it looks like the mid boss is going to be denied. They actually sustained too much damage. Aegis Aurora running distraction long enough around the mid boss to force Buff Enjoyers to disengage. And that, just like you said, CP, had they gotten the mid boss there, they would be likely ahead.
Honestly, Dan, this game in particular has really just highlighted the need for a Souls given stat right now. I want to know how many Souls Kenneth has also donated on top of generated. We're gonna have to hold the thought here. Aegis Aurora says it's time to go for mid-boss. The Rejuvenator is dropping on down. Buff Enjoyers is 3 people not nearby, so the level of contest here might be a little bit delayed. Ivy drops on down. Irizumi captures it for Aegis Aurora. They finish off Obakim, and Aegis Aurora overall pretty happy with the exchange.
Oh wow, this is devastating for Buff Enjoyers. Absolutely devastating.
And Dan, we got to bring him in. Jake, you've been watching the Vindicta show here so far and all the twists and turns. What do you got?
Yeah, this is a painful game to be going up against Vindicta. And Kenneth, I mean, despite a couple, as you say, unfortunate donations, he really has been putting up a show here. So many impactful kills. And I think the fact that Aegis Aurora was able to somehow come back in that fight and actually secure the mid-boss really shows how dominant they are playing around objectives. I mean, they lost so many characters there. I thought for sure, okay, this is Buff Enjoyers' chance back into the game with some of those feeds. You know, they're going to secure this mid for sure, but now it's against them, and they really have their back against the wall. I feel Fremont, after a couple bad deaths in the mid game, has really been showing on this disc. Really been having a lot of impact in these team fights, whether it's the stuns, the hold front control, just so much power. It looks like Buff Enjoyers fighting back really well with the Frozen Shelter right now.
Yeah, Obakim dropping it, looking for any form of stability, but it's not going to happen. Kenneth and Sanya just working the outskirts. Irizumi might be going down. It's not a completely one-sided battle. Both teams down 2. ABL going to be back in the fight soon with Traveler, but Buff Enjoyers might be done with the fight and then some. Let's see if ABL doesn't put teleport in.
Ooh, nice cleanup here. DP coming in from Buff Enjoyers. They've done a great job here to like chase down these kills. Okay, you're going to get some trades on the other end of it, but I think that was as best as they could have hoped for.
It really is. I mean, it gets rid of the bulk of the Rejuvenators that are left for Aegis Aurora. It helps clean up the Souls gap that's been developing here. And look, for as down as Buff Enjoyers has been, where they're facing elimination back-to-back weeks, they at least need that to hold their hat on to, because if they had lost that fight, Dan, look, this one might have been over.
Indeed, and it's definitely looking like there might still be a chance here, but there's going to be a hard-fought battle. Defensive play here around the lane 2 Walker as Aegis Aurora put the full force of their team into taking that Walker down. They'll be successful. It was pretty low, and they're going to try to retreat. I don't know that there's an opportunity here for Buff Enjoyers to maybe re-engage, but maybe it's a trap here as Buff Enjoyers start to move out. In comes Aegis Aurora to surround them, and they're taking a lot of damage right now. Buff Enjoyers are losing players, trading evenly so far, 2 against 2. The Google is trying to find his mark, crawling through the corridors here on the map and trapping the remaining players. There is no escape.
The disruption from Fremont there was absolutely legendary, but more than that, you take a look at that entire fight, the pressure on Kenneth, it does not exist. And as a result, you just see Sanya and Kenneth working the edges. The front line of Aegis Aurora, most of it being a goo ball, does its job. The shrines are gone, and so is the first stage patron here, Dan. Buff Enjoyers is in a pickle, and even lose one there. I think you're going to see Aegis Aurora back off. I don't think they stay for stage 2, but the options for Buff Enjoyers are quickly shrinking.
Yeah, 19k gap in the souls is not unrecoverable by any means, so the difficulty is really just that. There hasn't really been many fights, it feels like, or team fights that Aegis, or rather Buff Enjoyers have been able to set up for themselves where they have advantage. It usually feels like there's just too much damage flying at them and they kind of have to react. And so it seems very difficult right now for Buff Enjoyers to engineer a position of advantage in the team fights.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look where it's at. There are some bright spots. I don't really think Warden and Shiv are that far behind. It's not like ideal where they're at, but they're not meaningless either. 7 is kind of the angle where you'd like 7 to have more farm, but again, can do stuff. But speaking of doing stuff, Fremok rolling over. The disruption continues. This time, looking at Zergy in the back, ping-ponging around. We see here a little bit of shift in view. Looking at D-Mob. FHP Overkin making a little bit of space with the beam. D-Mob super, super low, just wants to get out, back over the base. I think he's just barely going to manage the retreat, but pressure unrelenting from Aegis Aurora.
Yeah, it's forced to disengage here. So looking at the souls very quickly, you know, where we left after that. Okay, it was a 19k gap. Okay, well, it's extended very slightly for Aegis Aurora. So they are getting more ahead. Regardless of how slow it is, they are still getting more ahead. And they haven't really shown so far, I think at any stage that we've been watching them over the last couple of weeks, that they really throw away leads or really misplay them. So it's going to require buff enjoyers to do something like creative or something, you know, just have a good performance effectively. There's no way to kind of gimmick your way out of this situation. And you can't rely on your opponents to make a mistake either.
Where Buff Enjoyers has gotten out of the situation before, because there was one legendary game where they were down by like 40k to DMS and brought it back, was key pickoffs in the middle. And right now they're looking for it on Fremok. Fremok, though, not the easiest target. Cubed himself in the beginning, but there's just too much around. But I was going to say, not even so much going for Fremok, going for the Vindicta, because they've punished players like Prestus before. Multiple times. Just focus the Vindicta early in fights, set up sneaky ganks, and that's how they've gone back into games like this. Kenneth, though, has been playing far more aware, I would say, than that one DMS game that took place a while ago, and I think it was Leon Bet where they made the big comeback. But so, I mean, Buff Enjoyers has been in worse situations, Dan, but it's all about just really finding individual pickoffs to claw their way back into peace fights.
Yeah, we'll see if they can find another one. They had that Viscous one previously, but just, again, the era superiority. Grey swap coming through. Can they farm the Vindicta? Can they target the Vindicta? Post-swap, the Anvil collides, but back into the action. Not up in the sky, though. Goes straight into the fight. So close, into the last stand, getting beamed down by Warden and others as Buff Enjoyers are having a great fight. This is the kind of team fight they needed to find up against the Geist. There comes the swap. Is the Geist trying to... Oh my goodness, the Paradox is still alive somehow. Great delay here. Fantastic work by Obikin to keep his teammates alive, but he might go down in the process. The great
Irezumi just having a full Rorschach moment right now. I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in with me in the moment. And meanwhile, back on the Patron, Dan. They're going for the end. Buff Enjoyers, is this it? The Patron, super, super low. Aegis Aurora trying to finish off. Buff Enjoyers, they can't defend. That is it.
What just happened, TP? I was not ready for that.
Both Warpstone and Phantom Strike putting out tons and tons of stuns.